Everyone saw a saint. I saw the thief draining every dollar from my accounts. I thought the slap across my face was the worst part of Thanksgiving, until my trembling sister handed me a crumpled note. In a heartbeat, I realized they did not just want to humiliate me, they planned to destroy my life. One minute I was the victim, but after reading those words, I knew I would never be silent again. My name is Madeline Carter. I am 34 years old, and I spend my days hunting invisible predators for Iron Shield systems. As a senior cybersecurity analyst, I am paid a significant salary to anticipate threats, identify vulnerabilities, and neutralize bad actors before they can dismantle the digital infrastructure of Fortune 500 companies. I live in a sleek, glass-walled apartment in Riverton overlooking the lake, a sanctuary of silence and control that I bought with my own money. In my professional life, I am respected, feared, and untouchable. But as I turned my car off the interstate and onto the winding, leaf-strewn streets of Maple Ridge, I felt that familiar, suffocating regression. The armor I wore so effortlessly in the boardroom seemed to dissolve the moment the tires crunched onto the gravel driveway of my childhood home. It was Thanksgiving, the fourth Thursday in November, a day that America has collectively decided to dedicate to gratitude and family. For the Carters, however, it was something else entirely. It was a performance. I killed the engine of my sedan and sat in the silence for a moment, gripping the leather steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Through the front bay window of the sprawling two-story colonial house, I could see the warm, golden glow of the chandelier. It looked picturesque, like a scene from a holiday card painted by an artist who had never actually met a dysfunctional family. I knew exactly who was inside. My father, Harold, likely nursing a drink in the corner and trying to make himself small. My stepmother, Darla, orchestrating the movement of every fork and napkin like a general on a battlefield. My 19-year-old half-sister, Lily, probably trying to disappear into the wallpaper. And then there was Trevor, Darla's son, my stepbrother, the 32-year-old golden boy who had never held a job for longer than 6 months, but always seemed to have a new, life-changing business venture that just needed a little seed capital. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face was composed, my makeup flawless. I told myself that tonight would be different. I had promised myself I would not engage. I would eat the turkey, compliment the stuffing, ignore the passive-aggressive barbs, and leave before dessert was fully digested. I was not going to be the bank tonight. I was just a daughter coming home for dinner. But as I stepped out into the biting November chill, I could not shake the instinct that had made me so good at my job. My gut was churning. It was the same feeling I got when I saw a line of code that did not quite belong. An anomaly in the system that suggested a breach was imminent. The front door opened before I could knock. Darla stood there, framed by the soft light of the foyer. She was wearing a silk dress that I knew cost at least $400, likely charged to the credit card I had paid off for my father last month. Her blonde hair was coiffed into a stiff, perfect helmet, and her smile was wide, showing teeth that were just a little too white. "Madeline," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a frisk. She smelled of expensive perfume and roasted sage. "We were worried you would not make it. You know how obsessed you get with your little computer projects." "It is good to see you too, Darla," I said, stiffening as I pulled away. "And it is not a project. I was closing a security audit for a bank." She waved her hand dismissively, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Oh, hush. Tonight is about family, not work. Come in. Come in. Everyone is dying to see you, or well, dying to see if you actually showed up." She turned and glided back into the house, expecting me to follow. I stepped inside, the heat of the house hitting me instantly. The living room was crowded with aunts, uncles, and cousins from Darla's side of the family, people I saw perhaps twice a year. The air was thick with the smell of roasting meat and the heavy, cloying scent of lilies from the massive floral arrangement on the center table. "Look who decided to grace us with her presence." The voice belonged to Trevor. He was lounging on the sofa, holding a crystal tumbler of amber liquid. He wore a velvet blazer and loafers with no socks, the uniform of the leisure class he pretended to belong to. He stood up, swaying slightly, his grin lopsided. "Hello, Trevor," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Madeline, you look tired," he said, looking me up and down. "Iron Shield working you to the bone? You need to learn passive income. Sis, that is where the real freedom is. That is what I was just telling Uncle Jerry. My new project in Silver Pines? It is going to revolutionize luxury ecotourism." I saw Uncle Jerry nodding enthusiastically. The boy has vision, Madeline, real vision. Not everyone wants to stare at screens all day. I bit the inside of my cheek. Trevor's vision usually involved pyramid schemes or flipping houses he did not own. The last time he had vision, it cost me $15,000 to settle a lawsuit he had entangled my father in. But I smiled, a tight, practiced expression. "I look forward to hearing about it." I made my way through the crowd, exchanging polite nods, until I found Lily. She was in the dining room, setting out the silverware. She looked thinner than the last time I had seen her. Her shoulders hunched forward as if she were expecting a blow. When she saw me, her eyes widened, and for a second, the mask of fear slipped, replaced by genuine relief. "Maddie," she whispered, rushing over to hug me. She felt fragile in my arms, like a bird. "Hey, Lil," I said softly, smoothing her hair. "You okay? You look like you have not slept in a week." She pulled back, her eyes darting toward the kitchen where Darla's voice could be heard barking orders at the catering staff. "I am fine. Just exams. You know how it is." "Is that all?" I asked, studying her face. There was a shadow there, a terror I did not recognize. "Madeline, darling, sit down. We are ready to start." Darla's voice cut through the moment like a whip. We moved to the long dining table, which was draped in heavy white linen. It was a masterpiece of domestic theater. Crystal goblets, silver candelabras, porcelain plates with gold rims. It was elegant, expensive, and entirely funded by the money I sent my father every month for his medical expenses and household maintenance. The seating arrangement was a subtle exercise in power dynamics. Darla sat at one head of the table, with my father at the other. Trevor was seated to Darla's right, the position of honor. The aunts and uncles filled the middle. I was placed at the far end, near the kitchen door, next to a second cousin who chewed with his mouth open. Lily was opposite me, her head bowed. As the turkey was carved and the wine poured, the conversation followed the predictable script. They praised the food, marveling at how moist the bird was, how crisp the skin. "Darla, you have outdone yourself," Aunt Linda gushed, raising her glass. "I do not know how you do it, taking care of this big house, looking after Harold, and still throwing a feast like this. You are the heart of this family, truly." "Oh, it is nothing," Darla said, pressing a hand to her chest, her eyes shimmering with faux humility. "I just want everyone to be happy. I sacrifice my time because I love you all so much. Family is everything to me." My father nodded, looking tired. "She works hard," he mumbled, taking a long sip of wine. "And let us not forget Trevor," Darla continued, beaming at her son. "He has been working day and night on his new venture. Tell them, honey." Trevor sat up straighter, swirling his drink. "Well, like I said, Silver Pines is not just real estate. It is a lifestyle brand. We are securing the land rights next week. The investors are practically begging to get in. I am projecting a 300% return by the third quarter of next year." A murmur of appreciation went around the table. 300%? Uncle Jerry whistled. "That is incredible. Son, keep that up, and you will be buying this whole neighborhood." I focused on cutting my turkey, the knife scraping against the porcelain. I knew for a fact Trevor had been declined for a car loan 3 weeks ago because I had seen the rejection letter on the counter when I dropped off Dad's medication. "And Madeline," Darla said, her voice shifting pitch, becoming sweeter but sharper, like glazed glass. "How is whatever it is you do? Still fixing computers?" The table quieted down. All eyes turned to me. I work in cybersecurity, Darla, I said, not looking up from my plate. I manage risk for enterprise systems. Right, she laughed lightly. It is all so technical. I do not know how you stand it, staring at code all day. No people, no connection. It must be lonely. It pays the mortgage, I said, my voice cool. Darla's smile didn't waver. Well, money is nice, dear, but it is not everything. Look at this table. This is wealth, love, family. Sometimes I worry you are letting your best years slip by chasing a paycheck. You are 34 now? No husband, no children, all that money in the bank, and who are you going to leave it to? Cats? A few of the cousins chuckled. I felt the heat rise in my neck, but I forced my pulse to remain steady. This was the game. She baited me. I reacted. And then I was the hysterical, ungrateful stepdaughter ruining the holiday. I am quite happy, Darla, I said, taking a sip of water. And I am happy I can contribute to making sure Dad is comfortable. Contribute, Trevor scoffed, talking with his mouth full. Come on, Maddie, you throw a few bucks at the bills, sure, but Mom is the one here every day. She is the one doing the actual work. You just write a check and think it absolves you of being absent. Trevor, my father said weakly, that is enough. No, it is true, Trevor insisted, his face flushing from the alcohol. She acts like she is the savior because she has a corporate job. But where is the heart? Where is the loyalty? If she really cared about this family, she would be backing us, really backing us, not just paying the electric bill. I placed my fork down. The metal made a sharp click against the china. I think we should enjoy the dinner, I said, my voice tight. This stuffing is delicious. I had diffused it. I had stepped back from the ledge. I saw Lily look up at me, her eyes wide with silent gratitude. I took a deep breath, telling myself I had won this round by not fighting. The dinner dragged on. The wine flowed freely. Bottles of Cabernet that I recognized as costing $80 each. I did the math in my head. The food, the wine, the flowers, the new dress Darla was wearing. This dinner cost more than $2,000. And I knew exactly whose account that money had ultimately come from, even if it had been laundered through the joint checking account I shared with my father. As the plates were cleared for dessert, Darla stood up. I need to check on the pies. Trevor, sweetie, come help me with the heavy tray. They retreated to the kitchen. The swinging door did not close all the way. It stayed propped open about 3 inches. From my seat at the end of the table, I had a direct line of sight into the sliver of the kitchen visible through the crack. The laughter at the table was loud. Uncle Jerry was telling a joke about a golfer and a priest, so no one else was looking. But I was watching. I always watched. I saw Darla leaning against the granite island. She was not getting the pies. She was close to Trevor, her hand gripping his forearm urgently. Her face, stripped of the public mask, looked hard and predatory. She was whispering furiously. Then I saw it. Trevor reached into the inside pocket of his velvet blazer and pulled out a folded stack of papers. He handed them to Darla. They were not white. They were a pale, distinctive yellow. My stomach dropped. In my line of work, I dealt with contracts, non-disclosure agreements, and compliance forms daily. But that specific shade of canary yellow legal paper was archaic. It was rarely used in corporate tech. It was, however, the standard color for certain types of high-risk personal loan contracts and promissory notes used by predatory lenders and title loan companies. I watched Darla unfold the document. She scanned it quickly, her eyes darting back and forth. Then she looked up at Trevor and nodded, a slow, chilling smile spreading across her face. It was not the smile of a mother proud of her son. It was the smile of an accomplice. She folded the yellow papers and tucked them into the waistband of her skirt, hidden beneath the silk blouse. Then she smoothed her dress, picked up the tray of pumpkin pies, and adjusted her expression back to the benevolent matriarch. Trevor grabbed 2 more bottles of wine. I turned my gaze back to the table just as they pushed through the door, beaming. "Who is ready for dessert?" Darla trilled. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. That yellow paper was not a recipe. It was not a greeting card. It was a financial instrument. And in this house, financial instruments were never good news for me. I looked at my father, who was dozing slightly in his chair. I looked at Lily, who was staring at her empty plate. And I looked at Darla, who was now slicing the pie with a sharp, silver knife, her eyes locking onto mine for a fraction of a second. Something was wrong. Something was fundamentally, dangerously wrong. They were not just mooching off me tonight. That paperwork meant they had moved from extraction to operation. I sat frozen, the taste of the turkey turning to ash in my mouth, realizing that the ambush I had feared was not just emotional, it was transactional. And I was the asset they were planning to liquidate. The yellow paper in Darla's waistband was a ghost, a specter that dragged me backward through time, away from the dinner table and into the deep, unhealed bruising of the past. It was impossible to look at that specific shade of legal paper without remembering how the trap had first been set. It had not been a sudden cage crashing down. It had been a slow, methodical weaving of a web, strand by sticky strand, until I was too wrapped up in guilt to realize I could not move. My mother died when I was 16 years old. Cancer is a thief that takes everything, the money, the energy, the hope, before it finally takes the person. When she passed, my father, Harold, did not just grieve, he collapsed. He was a man who needed to be managed, needed to be told which tie to wear and what time to eat dinner. Without her, he was a ship without a rudder, spinning in circles. 2 years later, he met Darla. I remember the first time she walked into our old house. She was vibrant. That is the only word for it. She wore a bright red dress that seemed to scream life in a home that had been silent and gray for 24 months. She was a restaurant manager back then, and she carried herself with that specific blend of hospitality and authority, the kind of woman who could charm a customer while simultaneously telling a waiter he was fired. In the beginning, she was perfect. She did not try to replace my mother. She positioned herself as my ally. She called me her bonus daughter. She sat on the edge of my bed and listened to me talk about boys and exams. She told me I was brilliant. She told me I was going to set the world on fire. "You have a mind for the big picture, Madeline," she would say, brushing my hair back from my forehead. "You are going to be the one who takes care of us all one day. I can feel it." I was 18 years old, starving for maternal approval, and I drank it up like water in a desert. I did not hear the condition attached to that statement. I only heard the praise. The shift happened the summer I received my full scholarship to university. It was a prestigious package, covering tuition and offering a generous stipend for living expenses. For the first time in my life, I had access to a bank account with a balance that had a comma in it. That was when the helpful advice started. "Oh, honey," Darla said one evening, looking at my acceptance letter with a furrowed brow. "You have to be so careful. You are a young woman with money now. People prey on girls like you. Banks, credit card companies, scammers. They smell fresh cash." "I can handle it," I had said, naive and proud. "Of course you can," she soothed, patting my hand. "But why should you have to worry about the boring details? Let me help you manage the accounts. I have run businesses. Madeline, I know how to stretch a dollar. You focus on your studies. Let me handle the administration. It is what families do." It sounded so logical. It sounded like love. So, I gave her access. It started small. I would come home for a weekend, and she would be sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of bills, weeping softly into a tissue. "What is wrong?" I would ask, panic rising in my chest. "It is just the heating bill," she would sob. "And the property tax. Your father is trying so hard. Madeline, but business is slow. I do not know how we are going to keep the lights on this month. I just do not want you to worry." But of course, the point was to make me worry. It was a precision strike on my conscience. How could I sit there with $3,000 of stipend money in my account while my father was supposedly freezing? "Take what you need," I told her. "Oh no, I could not," she protested. while her hand was already reaching for the checkbook. "I will pay you back. As soon as things pick up, this is just a loan, a family loan." That was the first lie. There were no loans in the Carter house. There were only donations. Over the next 4 years, the dynamic solidified into concrete. I was not the daughter. I was the resource. Every time I came home, there was a new crisis. The roof was leaking. The car transmission failed. Trevor, who was 20 at the time and had just flunked out of community college, needed startup capital for a DJ business that consisted of him buying $2,000 worth of speakers and playing music in the basement. "He is trying to find his way. Madeline," my father would say, avoiding my eyes. "We have to support his dreams. You were lucky. You are smart. Trevor needs a little more help." I began to equate love with transaction. If I paid the bill, Darla hugged me. If I questioned an expense, the warmth vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, wounded silence that could last for days. She would sigh and say, "I guess I just expected you to care about whether your family eats," turning me into the villain for wanting to keep the money I had earned. Then Lily was born. I was 22 when Darla had her. I remember holding that tiny pink bundle in the hospital, looking at her innocent face, and feeling a terrifying surge of protectiveness. I knew, even then, that I had to be the shield. I swore to myself that Lily would not be the bank. I would pay so she did not have to. But Darla was smarter than me. She did not use Lily as a bank. She used her as a hostage. "Lily needs braces," Darla would tell me over the phone. "But with the mortgage being what it is, I do not know. Maybe she can just wait a few years. It is a shame. Though, kids are so cruel about crooked teeth." And the check would be in the mail the next morning. But the moment that truly broke me, the moment I realized my father was not just a victim of her charm, but an accomplice to her greed, happened when I was 24. I had been working at my first corporate job for 2 years. I had saved aggressively, eating instant noodles and living in a shoebox apartment so I could build a safety net. I came home for Easter, intending to surprise them. I walked into the house and found the mail on the counter. There was a letter from a bank I did not bank with, addressed to Madeline Carter. Curious, I opened it. It was a confirmation for a home equity line of credit, a second mortgage on the family home, but the name on the primary borrower line was not Harold Carter, it was Madeline Carter. $75,000. The room spun. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I marched into the living room where Darla and my father were watching television. "What is this?" I asked, my voice shaking, holding up the letter. Darla did not even flinch. She looked at the paper, then back at the TV. "Oh, that finally came. Good." "Good?" I screamed. "You took out a loan in my name? How is this even possible? I did not sign this." My father finally looked up. He looked gray and tired, shrinking into the cushions of his recliner. "Maddie, please, lower your voice." "No, I will not lower my voice. This is fraud. Dad, this is a felony. You forged my signature?" "It was not forgery," Darla said calmly, standing up and smoothing her skirt. "It was a proxy. Your father signed it for you. We needed to consolidate some debts to fix up the house. It increases the value of the inheritance for you and Lily. We did it for you." "You did it for me?" I laughed, a hysterical, sharp sound. "You stole my credit score from me?" "Stop being so dramatic," Darla snapped, her eyes flashing. "Every family in America does this. It is how you build wealth. We leveraged your good credit because ours is a little overextended right now because we spent 20 years raising you. Do you have any idea how much you cost us?" I looked at my father. I needed him to stand up. I needed him to be the man he was before my mother died. I needed him to say, "You are right. Madeline, this is wrong." He looked at me, his eyes watery and weak. "Maddie, honey," he said softly, "please, Darla is just trying to keep everything afloat. If you cancel the loan, the bank calls the note. We could lose the house. Lily would lose her home. Just help us this one time. Later, Your stepmother will be the one looking after Lily. We are all on the same team. The same team. That was the phrase that killed the last shred of trust I had in him. He knew it was a crime. He knew it was a violation. But it was easier to sacrifice me than to fight her. He chose his peace over my protection. I did not call the police. I did not report the fraud. I was 24, and I was conditioned to believe that destroying my family was a greater sin than them destroying me. I swallowed the rage. I paid the monthly installments on a loan I never saw a penny of. I left that weekend and did not come back for 6 months. Over the next decade, I threw myself into my career. I became cold, efficient, and ruthless in my work. I climbed the ladder at Iron Shield Systems because code made sense. Logic gates were honest. If A, then B. There was no manipulation in binary. I made money, real money, and the more I made, the more they took. It was never a demand. It was always a crisis. Trevor's legal fees when he got caught driving under the influence. Darla's emergency surgery that turned out to be elective cosmetic work. My father's blood pressure medication. I bought my condo in Riverton to put physical distance between us, a fortress of solitude where I could lock the door. I remember sitting in that apartment just 3 nights before this Thanksgiving. I was alone. The city lights of Riverton were reflecting off the dark water of the lake outside my window. I had a spreadsheet open on my laptop. I had decided to audit my life. I went back 10 years. I pulled every bank statement, every transfer, every credit card payment I had made on their behalf. I categorized them. Rent assistance, Trevor's bail, medical, miscellaneous guilt. The cursor blinked at the bottom of the column. I typed in the formula to sum the total. When the number appeared on the screen, I stopped breathing. $342,560.40. That was the price of my membership in the Carter family. I looked around my empty apartment. I had nice furniture. I had a view. But I had no one. I had spent my entire adult life buying the affection of people who would steal from me the moment my back was turned. I was not a daughter. I was not a sister. I was a biological ATM machine with a guilt complex. Staring at that number, something inside me had hardened. It was like a callus forming over a raw nerve. I realized that Darla did not love me. She did not even like me. She groomed me. She had cultivated me like a crop, watering me with just enough praise to keep me producing, so she could harvest my bank account whenever she wanted. And now, sitting at the Thanksgiving table, watching the yellow paper pass from Trevor to Darla, I knew the harvest was not over. They were not satisfied with $300,000. They were hungry for more. The memory of that spreadsheet burned behind my eyelids. The old Madeline, the girl who wanted a mother, the girl who wanted her father to look at her with pride, was dying. She was suffocating under the weight of that $300,000 figure. And as I watched Darla slice the pumpkin pie, placing a piece on a gold-rimmed plate that I had paid for, I realized that the woman sitting in my chair was someone new, someone who was done paying. But they did not know that yet. They thought I was still the girl who could be shamed into writing a check. They had no idea that the bank was permanently closed. The remains of the pumpkin pie sat on the table like a battlefield casualty, reduced to crumbs and smeared whipped cream. The air in the dining room was heavy, thick with the combined weight of tryptophan, red wine, and the unspoken tension that had been tightening around my chest since I walked through the door. I watched Darla dab the corners of her mouth with a linen napkin, her eyes scanning the table to ensure every glass was full. She had the timing of a Broadway actress waiting for her cue. She picked up her spoon and tapped it gently against the side of her crystal wine goblet. The sharp, clear chimes cut through the low murmur of conversation. "Attention, everyone," Darla announced, her voice pitching up into that sweet, melodic register she reserved for public performances. "If I could just have a moment of your time. We have so much to be thankful for this year. Truly. But there is one special piece of news we have been saving for tonight." The room fell silent. Aunt Linda stopped chewing. Uncle Jerry lowered his glass. Beside me, I felt Lily stiffen. her hand gripping the edge of the tablecloth so hard her knuckles turned white. My father, Harold, stared fixedly at the centerpiece, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. Darla placed a hand on Trevor's shoulder. He was beaming, his earlier nervousness replaced by the arrogance of a man who believes the fix is already in. As you all know, Trevor has been working tirelessly on his business ventures, Darla said, glowing with maternal pride. Well, he has finally found it, the big one. He has secured an exclusive option on a property up in the mountains, near Silver Pines. It is not just a resort. It is a holistic wellness destination. The land alone is worth millions, and our Trevor found it before it even hit the market. That is fantastic, a cousin shouted from the other end of the table. It is incredible, Darla agreed, squeezing Trevor's shoulder. The developers are lined up. The plans are drawn. It is a guaranteed gold mine. Everyone says so. The only thing missing is the final bridge capital to lock down the deed before the end of the fiscal quarter. She paused for effect, letting the silence hang for 3 seconds. Then, she turned her head slowly, locking her gaze onto me. It was a predator's stare disguised as a warm invitation. And honestly, she continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that was clearly meant to be heard by everyone in the tri-state area, we were thinking, why let a bank take all the interest? Why let strangers profit from Trevor's hard work? We have a financial powerhouse right here at this table. If Madeline contributes a small portion from that impressive salary of hers, the whole family stays safe. We keep the wealth in the house. We all win. The trap snapped shut. Every head at the table turned toward me. 20 pairs of eyes, ranging from expectant to envious, bore into my face. I could see the calculations happening behind their eyes, to them. I was the cold, rich cousin from the city. I was the one with the luxury apartment and the mysterious tech job. Why wouldn't I help? It was just money. After all. I picked up my wine glass, took a slow sip, and set it down with deliberate precision. I did not smile. I did not look away. I switched into the mode I used when a client tried to explain away a security breach caused by their own negligence. Silver Pines, I said, my voice flat and even. That is a ski area, commercial zoning or residential. Trevor blinked, his smile faltering slightly. It is mixed use. Basically, it is huge. Maddie, 20 acres. Who is the underwriter? I asked. The what? Trevor asked. The underwriter, I repeated, locking eyes with him. If you have developers lined up, you have a prospectus. What is the legal structure of the investment? Is it a limited liability company? A general partnership? What is the projected capitalization rate? And most importantly, Trevor, what is the collateral? Trevor opened his mouth and closed it again. He looked at Darla, panic flaring in his eyes. He did not know what a capitalization rate was. He probably thought collateral was a type of vegetable. Oh, stop with the interrogation. Madeline, Darla interjected, her laugh brittle. You always have to make things so complicated with your big words. It is a family deal. We trust Trevor. That is what matters. Trust. Trust is not a financial strategy. Darla, I said coolly. And since you are asking me for money in front of an audience, I assume you have the paperwork ready. Interest rates? Repayment schedule? Or is this a donation? It is an investment, Trevor snapped, his face flushing a blotchy red. You get equity, you get shares, whatever. You are going to double your money in 6 months, 300% return by next year. I told you. 300%, I repeated. Bernie Madoff promised 10%. If you are promising 300%, you are either selling narcotics or you are delusional. A gasp went around the table. Aunt Linda put a hand to her chest. My father flinched as if I had thrown a glass at him. Madeline, Darla cried out, her voice trembling with staged hurt. How can you speak to your brother that way? He is offering you an opportunity. He is trying to share his success with you. He is asking me to fund his unemployment. Darla, I said, again. That is not fair, Trevor shouted. Slamming his hand on the table, the silverware rattled. You think you are so much better than us just because you sit in an air-conditioned office all day? You do not know the grind. You do not know how hard it is out there. I know exactly how hard it is, I said. That is why I keep the money I earn. Madeline, my father spoke up, his voice pleading. Please, let us not do this tonight. It is Thanksgiving. I looked at my father. He looked old, defeated, a man who had long ago surrendered his spine to keep the peace. You are right, Dad. It is Thanksgiving. So let me be clear so we can move on to coffee. No. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. No, Darla echoed, her eyes narrowing. No, I said. I will not be investing in Silver Pines. I will not be signing as a guarantor. I will not be lending any bridge capital. The bank is closed. Darla. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. It curdled. The relatives who had been looking at me with curiosity now looked at me with disdain. I could hear the whispers starting. Selfish, cold. She has so much. Why can she not share? Darla let out a long, shuddering sigh, looking down at her hands. I suppose I should have expected this, she said softly, playing to the crowd. We took you in, Madeline, when your poor mother died. God rest her soul. I stepped up. I raised you like my own. I made sure you had clothes, food, a home. We sacrificed so you could go to that fancy college. And now, when the family needs a little help to secure our future, you turn your back. She looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I guess money really does change people. The narrative was being rewritten in real time. I was the villain. I was the ungrateful stepdaughter hoarding her wealth while the noble family starved. I felt a cold fury rising in my chest. It was not the hot, chaotic anger of my 20s. It was a glacial, focused rage. I was done with the gaslighting. You raised me? I asked, my voice rising just enough to cut through the whispers. You managed the accounts, Darla. There is a difference. I loved you, she cried. You loved my scholarship fund, I corrected her. That is a lie, Trevor yelled. I turned to face the table, addressing the aunts and uncles who were looking at me like I was a monster. Let us talk about the sacrifices, I said, my voice steady. You want to talk about helping the family? Let us list the help. 2012. Trevor crashed his car into a storefront. $15,000 for the legal fees and settlement. I paid that. Directly to the lawyer. Trevor's mouth fell open. That was a loan. Has a single cent been repaid? I asked. No. 2014. Dad's heart condition that turned out to be panic attacks. $10,000 for the hospital stay because the insurance lapsed. I paid that. 2016. Darla, you needed to renovate the kitchen because of mold that the inspector never found. $22,000. I paid that. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. I paid off your credit cards 3 times. Darla, I said, looking down at her. $40,000 in total. I paid for this dinner. I paid for the wine you are drinking right now. So do not sit there and tell this family that I have turned my back. I have been carrying this family on my back for 12 years. The room was dead silent. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. Trevor's face was a deep crimson. Darla looked like she had been slapped, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Madeline, stop it, my father hissed. He was gripping his napkin so hard his hands were shaking. Sit down. You are embarrassing us. You are ruining the holiday. I looked at him, and my heart broke all over again. He did not deny the truth. He just hated that I had spoken it. He was not protecting me from their lies. He was protecting them from my truth. I am embarrassing you? I asked quietly. Dad, they are trying to swindle me in front of you, and you are worried about the neighbors? It is not a swindle, Trevor roared, standing up to match me. He looked unstable, his eyes wild. It is a sure thing. If you do not sign, we lose everything. Do you hear me? We are leveraged to the hilt. If we do not get this capital, the house goes, Everything goes. We will be on the street. The confession hung in the air. The facade of the wealthy real estate developer crumbled, revealing the desperate, broke man beneath. He had overplayed his hand. He was not offering me an opportunity. He was begging for a lifeline because they were drowning. That sounds like a personal problem, Trevor, I said cold. Not an investment opportunity. You bitch, he spat. You heartless, frozen bitch. You only care about your numbers. You do not give a damn if we starve. I care enough to stop enabling you, I said. I started to turn away, intending to leave the table, to walk out the door and never look back. But just as I shifted my weight, my phone buzzed violently in the pocket of my blazer. It was a distinctive vibration pattern, 3 short pulses. That was not a text message. It was not a social media notification. It was a priority alert from the Iron Shield security app installed on my personal device. It was the kind of alert I set for only the most critical breaches: identity theft warnings, unauthorized bank transfers, or firewall penetrations on my home server. I pulled the phone out reflexively. The screen lit up. Alert: Riverton Mutual Bank. Subject: unusual activity detected. Attempted login from unrecognized device. Location: Maple Ridge, Ohio. I stared at the screen. Maple Ridge. That was here. That was this neighborhood. Someone was trying to access my primary bank accounts. Right now, while I was standing at this table, I looked up. Trevor was breathing hard, glaring at me. Darla was watching me with a look of intense, terrifying calculation. Her hand was resting on her stomach, right where she had tucked that yellow envelope earlier. A chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the drafty window. This was not just a desperate plea for money. This was a coordinated attack. Is that your precious work calling? Darla sneered, seeing the phone in my hand. Go ahead. Answer it. Run back to your computers. It is all you are good for. I thumbed the screen off and slid the phone back into my pocket. I could not leave. Not yet. If I walked out that door now, I would be leaving the scene of a crime that was currently in progress. I needed to know exactly what they had done and how far they were willing to go. No, I said, sitting back down slowly. I am not going anywhere. I think I will stay for coffee. I picked up my fork, my hand perfectly steady despite the adrenaline flooding my veins. I looked at Darla, and for the first time that night, I smiled. It was not a nice smile. So, Trevor, I said softly, tell me more about this collateral. Trevor did not back down, emboldened by my question about collateral, or perhaps too stupid to realize I was cornering him. He reached under his chair and pulled out a thick, leather-bound portfolio. He slammed it onto the table with a thud that made the silverware jump. You want details? He said, his voice thick with bravado. Here are the details. We are not amateurs. Madeline, we knew you would be difficult. You are always difficult. So we did the heavy lifting for you. He slid the folder across the white tablecloth. It stopped right in front of my wine glass. I looked at it. It was a standard loan application dossier, the kind you would see at any mortgage broker's office. I flipped open the cover. The first page was a summary sheet for a secured loan. My eyes scanned the header. Borrower: Madeline Jane Carter. Co-borrower: Trevor James Carter. Loan amount: $750,000. My breath hitched. $750,000. This was not a bridge loan. This was a fortune. This was enough to buy a second home in this neighborhood and still have money left over for a luxury car. Trevor, I said, my voice dangerously low. What is this? It is the application, he said, shrugging as if he were explaining the weather. We just need to overnight it to the lender tomorrow. We figured since you are already here, we could save time. Save time? I flipped the page. That was when the air left my lungs entirely. On the third page, under the section titled Signatures and Acknowledgements, there was a line for the primary borrower, and sitting on that line, in blue ink, was my name. It was my signature. But it was not my signature. I leaned in closer, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I recognized the loop of the M and the sharp, jagged cross of the T. It was the exact way I had signed my name on my college diploma, which hung in the hallway of this very house. I looked closely at the ink. It lacked the indentation of a ballpoint pen. The edges of the lines were slightly fuzzy, pixelated. It was a digital scan. Someone had taken a high-resolution photo of my signature from an old document, cropped it, and pasted it onto this form. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. "Get what?" Darla asked, leaning forward, feigning innocence. I stood up. The motion was so abrupt that my chair screeched against the hardwood floor. I held the page up, facing the table. "This!" I shouted, my voice cracking with the sheer absurdity of the violation. "Who put my signature on this document?" The room went dead silent. The cousins stopped chewing. Uncle Jerry froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. Trevor looked at Darla. Darla waved a hand dismissively, offering a tight, condescending smile. "Oh, calm down, Madeline," she said, her voice dripping with faux reasonableness. "It is just a placeholder, a draft. Trevor was just showing the bank what the completed file would look like so they could pre-approve the rates. It is not official until the notary stamps it. We were going to have you sign the real one tonight anyway." "A placeholder?" I stared at her, incredulous. "You photocopied my signature onto a federal loan application for $750,000 without my consent? That is forgery. Darla, that is identity theft. That is a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison." "Stop using those legal words," Darla snapped, her mask slipping for the first time. "You are so dramatic, always the victim. We are family. We are trying to build something here, and all you care about is procedure." "I care about not going to jail for fraud," I yelled back. "I am not signing this. In fact, I am calling the bank first thing tomorrow morning to flag this application as fraudulent. And then I am calling my lawyer." I tossed the folder back onto the table. It slid and hit the gravy boat. Darla's face changed. The sweet, suffering martyr vanished. In her place was something ugly, twisted, and terrified. She stood up slowly, her knuckles pressing into the table. "You would not dare," she hissed. "You ungrateful, selfish little brat." "Try me," I said, crossing my arms. "After everything I have done for you?" Darla's voice rose to a shriek. "I took you in. I washed your clothes. I cooked your meals. Your own mother died and left you nothing but grief. She was weak, Madeline, weak and sickly. She could not protect you. I was the one who stepped up. I was the one who made you strong. And this is how you repay me? By threatening to put your brother in jail over a piece of paper?" The mention of my mother hit me like a physical blow. My vision blurred for a second. She had no right. She had absolutely no right to speak about the woman she had replaced. "Do not talk about my mother," I said, my voice shaking with a rage so profound it felt cold. "You did not raise me. Darla, you tolerated me, and you did not do it for free." "I gave you a home," she screamed. "I paid for the home," I screamed back. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ambient noise of the house seemed to vanish. "Excuse me?" Darla whispered. "You heard me," I said, looking around the table at the shocked faces of my relatives. "You want to know the truth? You all think Darla is a saint? I have paid the mortgage on this house for the last 6 years. I paid for the roof repair in 2018. I paid for Trevor's car. I paid for your credit card debt. I have poured nearly $350,000 into this family since I graduated college. And you have the audacity to call me ungrateful because I will not let you steal another $700,000? Trevor looked like he was going to be sick. His face was pale, his mouth open. He had clearly told the relatives that he was the one supporting the household. Darla's eyes went wide. She looked around the room, seeing her narrative crumbling. She saw the doubt in Aunt Linda's eyes. She saw the shock on Uncle Jerry's face. She was losing control. And for a narcissist like Darla, losing control was a death sentence. She marched around the table. "You liar," she spat, closing the distance between us. "You jealous, lying little bitch." "I have the bank statements, Darla," I said, holding my ground. I have every single check. I have… Crack. The sound was like a pistol shot. My head snapped to the right. A blinding flash of white light exploded behind my eyes. My cheek burned as if it had been branded with a hot iron. I stumbled back, my hip hitting the edge of the buffet table. A glass of red wine tipped over, shattering on the floor, splashing dark crimson liquid onto the white rug like a splatter of blood. The room gasped in unison. I stood there, stunned. My hand flew to my face. My skin was throbbing, pulsing with heat. It was not a tap. It was a full-force, open-handed strike from a grown woman who intended to hurt me. I slowly turned my head back to look at her. Darla was standing there, chest heaving, her hands still raised slightly. Her eyes were wild, manic. She looked down at her palm, then back at me, breathing hard. "You," she panted, "you needed that. Someone needed to knock some respect into you." I looked at my father. He was sitting in his chair, his face ashen. He was staring at Darla with wide, terrified eyes. "Dad?" I said, my voice trembling. He looked at me, then looked at his wife. He swallowed hard. "Darla," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. "Honey, let us not get physical." That was it. That was his defense. Let us not get physical. He did not stand up. He did not yell. He did not throw her out. He sat there, clutching his napkin, terrified of rocking the boat, even as his daughter stood before him with a welt forming on her face. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Lily had jumped up. Her face was drained of color, her eyes filled with tears. She took a step toward me, her hand reaching out. "Maddie!" "Sit down!" Darla roared, spinning on her heel to point a finger at Lily. "Do not move! Lily, sit your ass down right now or you are grounded until you are 30. Lily flinched as if she had been hit. She looked at me, agonizing helplessness in her eyes, then slowly sank back into her chair, gripping the tablecloth until her knuckles were white. She was terrified. I looked back at Darla. She was fixing her hair now, trying to regain her composure, trying to act as if slapping a 34-year-old woman at a Thanksgiving dinner was a reasonable parenting tactic. "Now," Darla said, smoothing her dress, though her voice was still shaky. "Sit down, Madeline. Sign the papers. And we can forget this little outburst ever happened. We are a family. Families forgive." My cheek was on fire. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. But strangely, the chaos in my mind had settled. The confusion was gone. The guilt was gone. The lingering hope that I could ever be loved by these people had evaporated the moment her hand connected with my face. I straightened my blazer. I reached up and wiped a smudge of blood from my lip where my tooth had cut the skin. I looked Darla dead in the eye. I did not scream. I did not cry. I channeled every ounce of cold, corporate steel I had learned in 10 years of negotiating with hackers and extortionists. "You just made a mistake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but carrying to every corner of the silent room. "A mistake you cannot fix in a lifetime." Darla rolled her eyes. "Oh, shut up and eat your pie." I turned my back on her. I walked past Trevor, who refused to meet my gaze. I walked past my father, who was staring at his plate. I walked out of the dining room, the sound of my heels clicking rhythmically on the hardwood floor. I went into the powder room down the hall and locked the door. I leaned over the sink, gripping the cold porcelain until my fingers hurt. I stared at myself in the mirror. The left side of my face was already swelling. A bright, angry red handprint was blossoming across my cheekbone, the outline of her fingers clearly visible against my pale skin. My lip was bleeding. My eye was slightly puffy. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. They were shaking from adrenaline. I opened the camera app. I turned my face to the light. I took a photo, then another, then a video, turning my head to show the swelling, documenting the time and the location. I looked at the image on the screen. It was ugly. It was humiliating. But it was also evidence. I took a deep breath. splashing cold water on my face, avoiding the tender skin. I dried my hands on a guest towel embroidered with the word blessed. I was done being the daughter. I was done being the bank. I stared at my reflection one last time. The eyes staring back at me were not the eyes of a victim. They were the eyes of a hunter who had just been given the scent. "Okay," I whispered to the mirror. "Okay." I unlocked the door and stepped back out into the hallway. I was not leaving yet. Not until I had everything I needed to burn their world to the ground. The fluorescent light of the powder room hummed with a low, irritating buzz that seemed to drill directly into my temple. I was still gripping the edge of the sink, my knuckles white, staring at the reflection of the red handprint blooming across my left cheek, but the physical pain was rapidly being eclipsed by the cold. Digital dread emanating from the phone in my hand. I unlocked the screen, my thumb trembling slightly, not from fear, I told myself, but from the adrenaline crash. I tapped the notification from the Iron Shield security app, the one that had buzzed just moments before Darla's hand connected with my face. The screen populated with the stark red text of a high-priority alert. Riverton Mutual Bank. Security override attempt. Timestamp: 8:21 p.m. IP address: 192.168. I froze. I knew that IP address. It was not a random hacker in Eastern Europe. It was not a botnet. It was the local IP address for the router sitting in the hallway of this very house. Someone had tried to reset my online banking password using the Forgot Password protocol, triggering the two-factor authentication challenge, and they had done it at 8:21 p.m. I looked at the digital clock on my phone. It was now 8:35. 8:21 was exactly when Trevor had been shouting at me about the collateral. It was exactly when Darla was distracting the table with her performance. The realization hit me like a bucket of ice water. They were not just trying to bully me into signing a loan document. That was the overture. The real operation was happening in the background. While Trevor kept me occupied with the argument, someone, likely an automated script on Trevor's laptop, or perhaps a third party they had given access to, was attempting to brute force my primary checking account. They did not just want the loan, they wanted total control. They were trying to lock me out of my own money while I was sitting in their dining room eating turkey. A wave of nausea rolled over me. This was not family dysfunction. This was active, malicious cyber warfare. I heard a soft, tentative scratch on the bathroom door. It was so quiet, I almost missed it over the sound of my own blood rushing in my ears. I shoved the phone back into my blazer pocket and took a deep breath, trying to arrange my face into something resembling composure. I unlocked the door and pulled it open a crack. Lily was standing there. She looked like a ghost. Her face was washed out, pale as the hallway walls, and her eyes were red-rimmed and terrified. She was hugging herself, her shoulders hunched up toward her ears as if she were trying to make herself disappear. In her right hand, clenched so tight the paper was wet with sweat, was a crumpled ball of what looked like printer paper. "Maddie," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "Please do not yell. Please." "I am not going to yell, Lily," I said softly, stepping back to let her in. I locked the door behind her. "Are you okay? Did she hurt you?" Lily shook her head rapidly, her dark hair falling over her eyes. No, she yelled, "But Maddie, you have to see this. I found it." "Found what?" She held out the crumpled ball of paper. Her hand was shaking so bad the paper vibrated in the air. "I was looking for the extra napkins in Mom's office before dinner. It was on the printer tray, underneath a stack of flyers for Trevor's real estate thing. I saw your name, so I took it. I was too scared to give it to you at the table." I took the paper from her. It felt damp and heavy. I carefully uncrumpled it, smoothing it out against the cool marble of the vanity counter. It was a printout of an email chain. The header showed it was a conversation between Trevor and Darla from 3 days ago. I began to read, and the temperature in the small room seemed to drop 20 degrees. From Trevor C. Real Estate. To Darla Mom. Subject: the signature issue. Text: The bank rep says the scan from the 2019 tax return is a little pixelated. If she notices, we are screwed. Can we get a fresh one? Maybe get her to sign a birthday card or something and I can lift it from there? From Darla Mom to Trevor C. Real Estate. Text. Don't worry about the pixels. I told the notary it was a fax copy. He is on the payroll. He will stamp it. Just make sure the insurance policy is attached to the loan packet as the primary collateral. If she refuses to sign the loan tonight, we push the application through using the power of attorney form anyway. I have practiced her initials enough times to pass a glance. My stomach twisted. They were discussing forging my signature not just on the loan, but on a power of attorney, a document that would give them legal rights to act on my behalf in all financial matters. They had been practicing my initials. But it was the handwritten note scrawled in blue ballpoint pen at the bottom of the page that stopped my heart. It was Darla's handwriting. I recognized the looping, decorative script she used for thank you notes and grocery lists. The note read, "If she fights the POA, we move to Plan B. The mountain road to the Silver Pines site is very slippery this time of year. Accidents happen. The life insurance payout is actually higher than the loan amount. $2 million. Problem solved either way." I stopped breathing. I read it again. The life insurance payout is actually higher than the loan amount. Accidents happen. I looked up at the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked the same. Same blonde hair, same blazer, same red mark on her cheek, but the world around her had fundamentally shifted. 5 minutes ago, I was a victim of financial abuse. Now, I was a target. They were not just planning to steal from me, they were actively calculating the value of my death. If I refused to be their bank, I became more valuable to them as a corpse. I looked at Lily. She was watching me, tears streaming silently down her face. "You read this?" I asked, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Hollow, distant. Lily nodded. "I heard them," she whispered. 2 nights ago. Trevor was on the phone with Mom. They were laughing about how much ice there is on the pass up to Silver Pines. Trevor said something like, "One bad turn and she is an angel." I didn't understand what they meant until I saw the note. "Maddie, I think they want to hurt you." "They do not just want to hurt me." "Lily," I said, the cold steel of my professional training finally locking into place. "They are conspiring to commit murder." I did not panic. Panic is a luxury for people who are safe. In my line of work, when you detect a threat, you do not scream, you document. I pulled out my phone again. My hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped completely. "Lily, stand by the door," I commanded softly. "Listen for footsteps." She nodded and pressed her ear against the wood. I laid the crumpled paper flat on the counter. I opened the Iron Shield secure document scanner app. I took a high-resolution photo of the email. I zoomed in on the handwritten note, capturing the ink pressure, the specific slant of the letters. I took 4 different angles to ensure the text was legible. Then, I tapped the Upload to Secure Cloud button. I watched the progress bar. 20%. 40%. "Someone is coming," Lily hissed. My heart hammered. "Who?" Heavy steps. "Trevor." I watched the bar. 60%. "Maddie," Lily whimpered. "Wait," I said. 80%. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. The handle jiggled. "Occupied," I called out, my voice annoyed, bored, completely normal. "Hurry up, Madeline." Trevor's voice came through the wood, slurred and arrogant. "We are cutting the cake. Mom wants to know if you are done pouting." "I will be out in a minute. Trevor, go away." "Whatever, drama queen." The footsteps receded. I looked at the phone. Upload complete. File encrypted and sent to remote server. I exhaled a breath I felt I had been holding for 10 years. The evidence was off the device. It was sitting on a server in a data center in Virginia, protected by military-grade encryption. Even if they took my phone, even if they hurt me, the truth was safe. I turned to Lily. She was trembling again. I knelt down so I was eye level with her. I took her cold hands in mine. "Lily," I said, looking deep into her eyes, "you just saved my life. Do you understand that? You are the bravest person in this house." "I am scared," she sobbed quietly. "I am so scared. I do not want to go back out there. Mom." She looked at me like she knew. "Listen to me," I said, squeezing her hands. "I'm going to fix this. I promise you. But I need you to be strong for just a little longer. Can you do that?" She sniffed, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "What are you going to do?" "I am going to take them down," I said. "Not just for the money, for everything, but I need you to be my eyes and ears. You live here. You see things I do not." I reached into my blazer pocket and pulled out a secondary burner phone I sometimes carried for work. It was small, unobtrusive. "Take this," I said, pressing it into her hand. "Hide it. Do not let them see it. If you hear them talking about money, or me, or insurance, or accidents, you record it. Can you do that?" Lily looked at the phone, then at me. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, I can do that." "Good. If you ever feel unsafe, you text me on that phone. One word. Run, and I will come for you. I do not care if I have to drive a tank through the front door. I will come for you." She threw her arms around my neck and hugged me tightly. I held her, feeling the fragility of her frame, and felt a surge of protective fury that made the slap from Darla feel like a kiss. "Okay," I said, pulling back. "We have to go back out there. If we stay in here too long, they will get suspicious. Wash your face, fix your hair. We walk out there, and we act like nothing happened. I am the defeated sister. You are the obedient daughter. We play the roles." "And then?" Lily asked. "And then," I said, standing up and smoothing my blazer, "we wait for them to make the next move, and we bury them with it." I flushed the toilet for effect. I waited for Lily to splash water on her face. Then, I unlocked the door. We walked out into the hallway together. The sound of laughter drifted from the dining room. I heard Darla's voice, loud and bright, telling a story about how clumsy I was as a child. "She always was a bit unstable," Darla was saying, followed by the tinkle of polite laughter from the relatives. I looked at the crumpled note in my pocket. I touched the cool glass of my phone. They were laughing. They were drinking my wine, eating my food, and planning my funeral. They thought the slap was the end of the conflict. They thought I was broken, crying in the bathroom, getting ready to write a check just to make the pain stop. They had no idea that the woman walking back down the hallway was not Madeline the victim. I was Madeline the architect, and I had just received the blueprints for their destruction. I paused at the entrance to the dining room. I put a mask of resignation on my face. Drooping my shoulders slightly, I walked back into the light. "There she is!" Trevor shouted, raising his glass. "The prodigal sister returns!" I sat down in my chair. I picked up my fork. I looked at Darla, who was smiling at me with terrifying shark-like satisfaction. "Feeling better, sweetie?" she asked. "Much better," I lied, cutting a piece of the cold turkey. "I just needed to think." "Good," she purred. "Thinking is good. We just want what is best for you." "I know," I said. I took a bite of the food. It tasted like ash, but I chewed it, I swallowed it, and I smiled back. "Go ahead," I thought. "Send the file. Forge the signature. Drive me up the mountain." I am ready. The cold November air hit my face like a slap, stinging the raw skin of my left cheek where Darla had struck me. I stood on the front porch for a moment, breathing in the scent of dead leaves and wood smoke, trying to slow the jackhammer rhythm of my heart. Inside, the muffled sounds of laughter and clinking silverware drifted through the brick walls, a sickening soundtrack of a family that had just tried to cannibalize one of their own and was now happily eating pumpkin pie. "I just need some air," I had told them, my voice trembling with a feigned fragility that made Darla smirk. I walked down the driveway to my sedan, unlocked it, and slid into the driver's seat. It was a sanctuary of silence and leather. I locked the doors instantly. My hands were shaking, not from fear anymore, but from a cold, vibrating rage that felt like electrical current. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I did not call the police, not yet. The police would take a report, maybe ask a few questions, and Darla would charm them with her concerned mother act. She would say it was a domestic dispute. She would say I was unstable. I needed something sharper than a patrol car. I needed a scalpel. I dialed Amanda Graves. Amanda was not just my lawyer. She was a shark in a silk suit. We had met 5 years ago when a former boyfriend tried to sue me for emotional damages after a breakup, and she had dismantled his life so thoroughly in a deposition that he ended up apologizing to me and paying my legal fees. She specialized in financial crimes and high-stakes litigation. She picked up on the second ring, despite it being a holiday. Madeline? Her voice was crisp, alert. I assume you are not calling to wish me a happy Thanksgiving, considering the hour. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Amanda, I said, my voice steady. I am going to send you a file. It is uploading now. Tell me when you get it. I could hear the click of a keyboard on her end. Okay, I am at my computer. Go ahead. I am at my father's house, I said, staring at the glowing windows of the living room. My stepmother and stepbrother just presented me with a loan application for $750,000. My signature was already on it. It was a digital forgery lifted from an old tax return. Fraud, Amanda said instantly. That is a Class 3 felony. Did you confront them? Yes, and then Darla assaulted me. She hit you? Amanda's tone dropped an octave. Madeline, leave the house. Go to the nearest precinct. We can file a restraining order tonight. There is more, I cut in. Look at the file I just sent. It is a photo of an email printout my sister found in the trash. There was silence on the line for a long 10 seconds. I could hear the faint hum of static. Then, I heard Amanda inhale sharply. Jesus Christ, she whispered. Is this handwriting verified? It is Darla's, I said. I have a dozen birthday cards to match it against. Accidents happen. Life insurance payout. They are talking about killing me. Amanda. They are talking about staging a car accident on a mountain road because I am worth $2 million dead and nothing to them alive. Okay, Amanda said. The shock was gone, replaced by a terrifying professional calm. Madeline, listen to me. This just escalated from fraud to conspiracy to commit capital murder. You need to get out of there right now. No, I said. Excuse me? If I leave now, they will know I saw the note, I said, watching a shadow move across the front window. They will destroy the evidence. They will wipe the hard drives. They will claim the note was a joke, or that Lily forged it. I need them to commit to the act. I need them to take the next step. You are not an undercover agent. Madeline, you are a civilian. I am a security analyst, I corrected her. I hunt predators for a living. I am not leaving this house until I have enough evidence to bury them so deep they will never see sunlight again. What do I need to do? Amanda was silent for a moment, calculating. If you stay, you are in danger, but legally, if we want a RICO case or a serious conspiracy charge, we need an overt act. We need them to confirm the plan. We need them to admit that the signature is fake and that they intend to use it regardless of your consent. I can get that, I said. Do not antagonize them, Amanda instructed. You need to de-escalate. Make them think they won. Apologize. Tell them you overreacted. If they think you are compliant, they will get sloppy. Narcissists always get sloppy when they think they are in control. I can do that, I said, though the thought of apologizing to Darla made bile rise in my throat. I am going to call Eli Barnes, Amanda said. You remember him? The forensic accountant who used to work for the Bureau? The guy who found the hidden assets in the chaotic divorce case last year? The same. He operates privately now. I'm going to put him on a retainer immediately. I need you to send him everything. Bank statements, the photo of the note, the recording of the assault if you have it. We are going to build a financial map of their desperation. If they are willing to kill for $2 million, they are likely drowning in debt we do not know about. I will send the data, I said. Amanda? Yes? Destroy them, I said. I want the house. I want the cars. I want their freedom. I want everything. We will get everything, Amanda promised. Just stay alive tonight. I hung up. I sat in the car for another minute, composing myself. I looked in the rearview mirror. The swelling on my cheek was worse, a throbbing purple bruise beginning to form under the red handprint. I pulled a compact from my purse and applied a layer of foundation. It did not hide the injury, but it softened it. It made me look less like a victim and more like someone trying to keep up appearances. That was exactly what Darla wanted. She wanted me to be the good girl who hid the family's ugly secrets under a layer of makeup. I took a deep breath, opened the car door, and walked back into the lion's den. When I entered the living room, the atmosphere was tense. My father was sitting in his recliner, staring at the floor. Lily was on the sofa, looking terrified. Trevor was pouring himself another drink. Darla was standing by the fireplace, looking triumphant but wary. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed. "I thought you left," she said. Her voice clipped. "I almost did," I said softly. Keeping my head down, I walked over to the table where the loan application still sat. I picked it up, my hands trembling, this time a calculated affectation. I sat in the car and thought about what you said. Darla. "And?" she asked, crossing her arms. "You are right," I said. The words tasted like poison. "I have been distant. I have been focused on my career, and I know how much you did for me when I was younger. I do not want to be the reason the family loses everything." The change in the room was palpable. The tension snapped. Trevor let out a loud breath and grinned. Darla's face softened into a look of smug satisfaction that was almost unbearable to witness. "Oh, honey," she cooed, walking over and placing a hand on my uninjured shoulder. "I knew you would come around. You are a good girl deep down. You just have that stubborn streak from your mother." I was scared," I lied, looking up at her with wide eyes. $750,000 is a lot of money, and the signature, it just shocked me. "It was just a formality." "Madeline," Trevor said, stepping forward, smelling of bourbon. "Like we said, just to get the ball rolling." "I understand," I said. "Look, I am willing to move forward, but I cannot just sign something this big without a second set of eyes. It is a compliance issue with my job. If I take on this much debt without declaring it properly, I could lose my security clearance." "Lose your clearance?" Darla asked, frowning. "Yes. Iron Shield monitors my debt-to-income ratio. If it spikes, they investigate. But if I have a financial advisor sign off on the structure, proving it is a sound investment and not just a liability, I can bypass the audit." This was complete nonsense. Iron Shield did not care about my personal loans unless I was bankrupt. But Darla and Trevor knew nothing about corporate compliance. To them, it sounded like the kind of bureaucratic red tape they hated but respected. "A financial advisor?" Trevor asked suspiciously. "Who?" "A friend of mine," I said quickly. "He is discreet. He owes me a favor. If I bring him the papers, he can stamp them, restructure the interest so it looks like a business partnership, and we are clear. The bank releases the funds. You get your resort, and I keep my job." Darla looked at Trevor. They exchanged a silent communication. I held my breath. This was the hook. If they agreed to involve a third party, they were opening the door for Eli Barnes to walk right into their financial lives. "Well," Darla said slowly, a greedy light entering her eyes, "that sounds reasonable, as long as he understands that this is a time-sensitive deal." "He does," I said. "I can get him the files tomorrow, but I need to know. The bank contact you mentioned, the one who accepted the draft signature, will he be a problem?" "Gary?" Trevor laughed. "No way. Gary is cool. He gets a kickback on the origination fee. He does not care if Mickey Mouse signs the paperwork as long as the credit score checks out." I felt the phone in my pocket buzzing softly against my hip. I had activated the voice recorder before I walked back inside. Kickback. Origination fee. Gary. "Okay," I said, forcing a weak smile. That is a relief. So, if I agree to this, we can use the existing application? The one with the copy? Exactly, Darla said, patting my cheek. The bruised one. I flinched, and she smiled. See? It is so much easier when you just cooperate. We send this in tomorrow. Gary pushes the button. Funds hit the account by Tuesday, and then we are all rich. And the insurance? I asked, keeping my voice casual. I saw a mention of insurance in the file. Darla froze for a microsecond. Oh, that standard procedure for a loan this size? Key person insurance, just in case something happens to you. The bank wants to know they will get paid. It is for your protection, really. Right, I said. My protection. Do not worry your pretty little head about the details anymore, Darla said, turning back to the table. Trevor, pour your sister a glass of wine. We are celebrating. I took the glass Trevor handed me. I pretended to sip it. I am going to just check on Lily, I said. I think I scared her. Go ahead, Darla said, dismissing me. She was already whispering to Trevor, likely calculating how to spend the money I had just promised them. I walked over to the sofa where Lily was sitting. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with confusion. She had heard me apologize. She thought I had surrendered. I sat down next to her and leaned in close, shielding my mouth with my wine glass so Darla could not read my lips. I am lying, I whispered. Do not react. Keep looking sad. Relief washed over Lily's face, but she managed to keep her expression neutral. Okay, she whispered back. I need to know, I murmured. You said you found the note in the office. Where does she keep the originals? The birth certificates? The old tax returns? The deeds? In the safe, Lily whispered. It is in the closet in the study, behind the boxes of Christmas decorations. Do you know the combination? It is Trevor's birthday, Lily said, a bitter edge to her voice. 042292. Of course it is, I muttered. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Amanda. Amanda. Eli is on board. He is running a background check on Trevor and Darla now. He found 3 shell companies registered to Trevor's name in Delaware, all defunct. He also found a lien on the house they didn't tell you about. They are underwater. Madeline, deep. I typed a reply under the table. Madeline, I have a witness statement on a corrupt bank officer named Gary, and I have the location of the physical evidence. Safe in the study. Code 042292. Amanda. Good. Eli is going to reach out to you. We need to get those documents. If we can prove they have a stash of your forged signatures, we can nail them for systemic identity theft, not just a one-time incident. I looked up. Darla was laughing loudly at something Trevor said. She looked radiant. She thought she had won. She thought she had broken me. She had no idea that the financial advisor I was bringing into the fold was a former federal agent who could track a single dollar through a hurricane. I stood up. Darla? Yes, sweetie? She turned, beaming. I am going to head out, I said. I am exhausted, and my cheek is really throbbing. Oh, you poor thing, she said, with zero empathy. Put some ice on it. We will see you tomorrow to finalize the paperwork with your friend? Absolutely, I said. Tomorrow. I walked to the door. My father looked up. Maddie, he said, drive safe. I will. Dad, I said. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the fear in his eyes, the weakness. He knew what they were doing was wrong, but he was too terrified of losing his comfort to stop it. He was not a victim. He was a collaborator. And in that moment, I realized I had to save Lily, but I could not save him. He had made his choice. Good night, Harold, I said. I walked out the front door. The cold air hit me again, but this time it felt invigorating. I walked to my car, got in, and locked the doors. I did not drive away immediately. I sat there, watching the house. I saw the silhouettes of Darla and Trevor moving in the living room. They were probably clinking glasses, toasting to their brilliance, to their luck, to the stupid stepdaughter who had finally fallen in line. I tapped the screen of my phone and opened the encrypted cloud drive. I saw the audio file of our conversation uploading. I saw the photos of the note. I saw the screenshots of the bank alert. I texted Eli Barnes. Madeline, I am leaving the site. They are expecting a financial advisor tomorrow. That is you. Be ready. Eli, I was born ready. Go home. Ms. Carter, get some sleep. We take them down in the morning. I put the car in gear and slowly pulled away from the curb. As I drove down the dark, winding streets of Maple Ridge, I touched my cheek. It was hot and painful, but the pain was a reminder. It was fuel. They wanted a war. They wanted to bleed me dry. They wanted to push my car off a cliff and collect a check. I turned onto the highway and accelerated, the engine roaring to life. You want my money? I thought, watching the city lights of Riverton appear on the horizon. You can have it. You can have the lawsuit. You can have the investigation. You can have the prison sentence. The bank was open, and I was coming to collect the debt. The week following Thanksgiving passed in a blur of gray skies and cold, clinical efficiency. While Darla and Trevor likely believed I was agonizing over the decision to sign their loan documents, I was actually sitting in a soundproof conference room on the 42nd floor of a glass tower in downtown Riverton, dismantling their lives piece by piece. Amanda Graves did not believe in wasting time. She had mobilized Eli Barnes, the forensic accountant, at 8 o'clock the morning after Thanksgiving. By the following Thursday, exactly 1 week after Darla had slapped me, we had gathered to review what Eli called the initial damage assessment. The mood in the room was not one of family counseling. It was an autopsy. Eli stood at the head of the table, projecting a series of documents onto the smart screen. He was a man who looked like a rumpled college professor, wearing a tweed jacket and thick glasses, but his mind was sharper than a razor blade. He pointed a laser clicker at the screen. You thought they were just trying to get $750,000 from you, Eli said, his voice dry and devoid of emotion. You were wrong. That was just the Hail Mary pass. They have already been bleeding you for years. He clicked the remote. 3 documents appeared side by side on the screen. They were mortgage deeds. These are 3 separate home equity lines of credit taken out against the Maple Ridge property. Eli explained. The first is dated 4 years ago, the second, 2 years ago, the third was opened last March. I squinted at the screen. My father told me they were struggling, but he never mentioned taking out second mortgages. He did not take them out, Eli said. You did. The room seemed to tilt. I beg your pardon? Look at the cosigner line, Eli said, zooming in on the image. There it was, Madeline J. Carter. I never signed those, I said, my voice steady but cold as ice. I have never even seen those banks. We know, Amanda interjected from her seat at the table, tapping a pen against her legal pad. Show her the artifact, Eli. Eli clicked again. The screen zoomed in on the signature block of all 3 documents, plus the draft application Trevor had handed me at Thanksgiving. He overlaid them on top of each other. In handwriting analysis, no person signs their name exactly the same way twice, Eli lectured. There are always microscopic variations in pressure, angle, and speed. But look here. He pointed to the loop of the letter L in my name. There was a tiny, almost invisible black speck floating inside the loop. That is not a pen mark, Eli said. That is a dead pixel on a scanner bed, or a speck of dust that was on the glass when the original signature was digitized. It appears in the exact same coordinate on all 4 documents. Spanning 4 years, it is a digital fingerprint. They scanned a signature from an old document, likely that tax return Trevor mentioned in the email, and they have been copy-pasting it onto loan documents for half a decade. I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with illness and everything to do with violation. They had not just stolen my money, they had stolen my name. They had turned my identity into a rubber stamp to fund their lifestyle. Total value? I asked. Principal and interest, Eli said, checking his notes. $215,000, all of it currently in default or close to it. That is why they needed the big loan. They are robbing Peter to pay Paul. But Peter is broke, and Paul is coming with a foreclosure notice. And the banks? I asked. How did they verify identity? They didn't, Eli said. Or rather, they thought they did. We traced the electronic submission logs. All the verification emails came from a Gmail account that looked like yours, Madeline Carter, private@gmail.com, but the IP address trails back to a public router. Let me guess, I said. The Daily Grind on 4th Street? Eli raised an eyebrow. Precisely. It is a coffee shop 3 blocks from your father's house. We cross-referenced the timestamps of the loan applications with Trevor's social media activity. On the exact day and hour the second loan was approved, Trevor posted a photo on Instagram of a latte at that specific shop with the caption, "Making moves, big things coming." He is an idiot, I whispered. He is a criminal, Amanda corrected. And a sloppy one, but sloppy criminals are still dangerous. She slid a file across the table toward me. This is the legal analysis. We have enough right now for a civil suit that would strip them of the house and every asset they own to repay the fraud. But we also have enough to go to the district attorney. We are looking at multiple counts of wire fraud, bank fraud, aggravated identity theft, and forgery. In this state, with the dollar amounts involved, Trevor and Darla are looking at a minimum of 15 years in a federal penitentiary. 15 years. I looked at the file. I thought about my father. He was weak. Yes, he was an enabler. But did he deserve to watch his wife and son go to prison for a decade and a half? There is more, Amanda said, her voice dropping lower. Lily sent us the audio files this morning. My stomach tightened. Play it. Amanda nodded to Eli. He clicked a file on his laptop. The speakers in the ceiling crackled to life. The sound of silverware scraping against plates filled the room. It was a recording taken during breakfast, probably 2 days ago. She is not going to sign it. Mom, Trevor's voice whined. I told you, she is playing games. She is going to drag this out until the option on the land expires. She will sign. Darla's voice replied. She sounded calm, chewing something crunchy. She is weak. Did you see her face when I hit her? She crumpled. She wants Mommy to love her too much to fight back. I gripped the edge of the conference table. Hearing her analyze my pain with such clinical detachment was chilling. But what if she talks to this financial advisor? Trevor asked. What if he looks too close? There was a pause in the recording. Then Darla spoke again, her voice lower, darker. If she does not sign by Friday, we stop asking. We just make sure the insurance policy is active. I checked the clauses. It pays out for accidental death, even if the policy is less than 2 years old. The mountain road is treacherous this time of year. Black ice is a terrible thing. If an accident happens, well, the payout is actually better than the loan, and we do not have to pay insurance back. The recording ended with a click. The silence in the room was absolute. I stared at the speaker grill in the ceiling. That is conspiracy to commit murder, Amanda said softly. It is not just a vague threat anymore. They have a timeline. Friday. That is tomorrow. They are discussing killing me like they are discussing a kitchen renovation, I said. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. We need to move, Amanda said. We need to get the injunction. We need to go to the police. Not yet, I said. Eli said there was something else, the will. Eli looked uncomfortable for the first time. He shuffled his papers. Right. While we were digging into the property records to find the liens, we pulled the title history on the Maple Ridge house. We also found a probate filing from 3 years ago, when your father had his stroke. He recovered, I said. It was a minor stroke. It was minor physically, Eli said, but legally, it was a turning point. Before the stroke, your father's will, drafted in 2010, placed the house into a trust. Upon his death, the trust was to be divided 60-40 between you and Lily, with Darla having a life estate, meaning she could live there until she died, but she could not sell it or mortgage it. That sounds like Dad, I said. He wanted to protect Lily. That will was revoked, Eli said, 3 weeks after his stroke, while he was still in rehabilitation and arguably heavily medicated, a new will was filed. It grants Darla full executive control and sole ownership of all assets immediately upon his death. With Trevor as the secondary beneficiary, you and Lily were removed entirely. He would never do that, I said. He knew Trevor would gamble it away. We analyzed the signature on the new will, Eli said. He put up one last image. It was my father's signature, but it looked wrong. It was shaky, which was to be expected after a stroke, but the proportions were distorted. This is not a natural tremor, Eli said, pointing to the elongated tail of the C. See how the ink density is uniform throughout the stroke? A shaky hand varies pressure. This signature was taken from a digital pad, like the ones you sign at a grocery store checkout, and then it was vertically stretched in Photoshop to fit the signature line on the PDF. It is another forgery, a bad one. I sat back in my chair, the breath leaving my lungs. They had not just exploited my father, they had erased him. They had waited until he was lying in a hospital bed, confused and vulnerable, and they had stolen his legacy. They had stolen the one thing he wanted to ensure, that Lily would have a roof over her house. So the house is not even legally theirs to leverage, I said. No, Amanda said. If we prove the will is a forgery, the property reverts to the previous trust terms, which means every loan they took out against it is invalid fraud. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. I looked out at the city of Riverton. I could see the lake in the distance, gray and churning under the winter wind. I had spent my entire life trying to buy my way into their hearts. I had thought that if I just wrote enough checks, if I was just successful enough, they would finally see me as family. But I was never family to them. I was prey. And my father, my poor, weak father, he wasn't just an accomplice. He was a hostage. He was living in a house with people who had already stolen his voice and were now planning to kill his daughter. Madeline? Amanda asked gently. What do you want to do? We have the evidence. I can have a judge sign a temporary restraining order and an asset freeze within the hour. We can lock them out of everything. But once we ring that bell, there is no unringing it. The police will get involved. Arrests will happen. I looked at my reflection in the glass. I saw the bruise on my cheek, covered by makeup but still tender. I saw the hard set of my jaw. If I stopped now, I could walk away. I could cut them off, change my name, move to Europe. I could save myself the trauma of a trial. But then I thought about Lily. I thought about her terrified face in the bathroom. I thought about the accident on the mountain road. If I walked away, Darla would not stop. She would just find a new target, or she would decide that Lily was worth more dead than alive. I turned back to face them. Freeze it, I said. Freeze everything. I want Darla's credit cards declined when she tries to buy lunch today. I want Trevor to log into his bank account and see a zero balance. I want the mortgage company to call them and tell them the house is under investigation. And the police? Amanda asked. Draft the affidavit, I said, but do not file it until tomorrow morning. I want them to panic first. I want them to realize the money is gone. I want to see what they do when they are cornered. That is dangerous, Eli warned. Desperate people do desperate things. I know, I said, picking up my purse. That is why I am going back there tonight. Madeline, no, Amanda said, standing up. That is insane. I have a dinner date, I said coldly. I promised them I would bring a financial advisor to review the papers. Eli, you are coming with me. Eli blinked. I am? You are the advisor, I said. You are going to walk into that house, look at their forged papers, and tell them to their faces that the numbers do not add up. I want to see Darla's face when she realizes the game is rigged. And if they get violent? Eli asked, adjusting his glasses. Then we will have the police waiting down the street, I said. But I want to look her in the eye when the house of cards falls. I earned that. I looked at the files on the table, the autopsy of a murder plot that hadn't happened yet. Let us go, I said. It is time to close the account. The days following Thanksgiving were defined by a suffocating, artificial silence. It was the kind of quiet that hangs over a battlefield after the first volley of shots has been fired, when both sides are retreating to their trenches to sharpen their bayonets, to the outside world. However, the Carter family was functioning as normal, better than normal, actually. Darla had launched a public relations campaign that would have impressed a crisis management firm. She was spinning a narrative of victory and reconciliation. I heard through the grapevine, specifically from a cousin who worked as a receptionist at the same dental clinic where I got my teeth cleaned, that Darla was telling everyone I had come to my senses. She was bragging at the grocery store and the beauty salon that I had apologized for my emotional outburst and that we were moving forward with the Silver Pines investment. She painted a picture of a benevolent matriarch who had graciously forgiven her unstable stepdaughter for making a scene. Then came the flying monkeys. In psychology, flying monkeys are the enablers who do the narcissist's bidding to torment the target. In my family, they were my aunts and cousins. My phone pinged incessantly with text messages that made my blood boil, though I forced myself to read them with clinical detachment. Aunt Linda texted me on Tuesday. "I am so glad you and Darla made up. Honestly, Madeline, you overreacted. It was just a tap on the cheek. You know how passionate your mother gets when she is stressed. She loves you so much. Do not ruin Trevor's future over a little pride." A tap on the cheek, passionate. I stared at the purple bruise that was currently blooming across my zygomatic arch, hidden under a thick layer of concealer. They did not see assault. They saw a mother disciplining a child. It did not matter that I was 34 years old and paid the mortgage on the roof over their heads. In their eyes, I was still the unruly teenager who needed to be brought to heel. Another cousin, Sarah, sent a message that was even worse. "Trevor says you are finally signing the papers. Good. He deserves a break. Try to be more supportive next time without the drama, okay? We are family." I did not block them. I did not scream. I did not send back photos of my injury or screenshots of the forged loan documents. Instead, I played the role Amanda Graves had scripted for me. I was the silent, compliant daughter. "I understand." I typed back to Aunt Linda. "I am just trying to do what is right." "We will sort it out," I replied to Sarah. Every non-confrontational text I sent was a brick in the wall of Darla's false sense of security. She thought she had beaten me into submission. She thought the silence was compliance. She had no idea that while she was planning how to spend my money, Amanda was sitting in a judge's chambers filing a civil complaint for fraud, conversion, and battery. But the first crack in Darla's facade appeared on Wednesday morning. I was sitting at my desk at Iron Shield, monitoring a routine server migration, when I received an encrypted message from the fraud department at Riverton Mutual Bank. I had flagged my own accounts days ago, placing a verify identity lock on any transaction over $500 or any attempt to access credit lines. The message was brief: attempted access to home equity line of credit application number 4922. Applicant claimed to be Madeline Carter via telephone. Security questions failed. Caller became abusive. Account locked pending in-person verification. I smiled. It was a cold, grim smile. Darla had tried to push the loan through using the power of attorney strategy she had discussed in the email. She had probably called the bank, mimicking my voice, armed with my social security number and mother's maiden name, but she did not know the answer to the new security question I had set up on Sunday night. Question: what is the name of the pet you never had? Answer: Justice. Darla would have tried answering with the name of our childhood dog. Buster. Access denied. 10 minutes later, my personal cell phone rang. The caller ID showed Mom's house. I let it ring 3 times before picking up. I pressed the record button on my external drive, which was plugged into my laptop. "Hello?" I answered, keeping my voice small and hesitant. "Madeline." Darla's voice was tight, vibrating with suppressed rage. "I am at the bank. Well, on the phone with them. There seems to be a problem with the processing. They are saying I need you to come in personally." "Oh," I said, feigning confusion. "That is strange. I thought you said your friend Gary could handle it." "Gary is trying," she snapped. but the system is blocking him. Did you change something, Madeline? Did you touch the settings? I do not think so, I lied. Maybe it is because of the amount? 750,000 is a lot of money. Darla, banks are careful these days. You need to fix this, she hissed. Trevor needs the funds in escrow by Friday. You need to call them right now and authorize the release. Or better yet, give me your login for the online portal. I can do it from here. I cannot do that, I said. I am at work. I have meetings all day. I do not care about your meetings, she shouted, the sweet facade cracking completely. You listened to me. We had a deal. You apologized. You said you were going to help. Now stop stalling and give me the access code. I am not stalling, I said, injecting a wobble into my voice. I am just scared. It is so much debt. What if the resort fails? What if I lose my job? There was a silence on the other end, a heavy, breathing silence. Then, Darla's voice dropped to a low, menacing register that made the hair on my arms stand up. You are starting to sound ungrateful again. Madeline, after everything I have done to smooth things over with the family, you really think you can just play games with us? I am not playing games, I whimpered. You think because you are sitting in that high tower office of yours that you are safe? She asked. You think you are untouchable? Let me tell you something. Life is fragile. You walk around with your nose in the air, thinking you are better than us, but accidents happen all the time. I held my breath. Say it, I thought. Say it for the recording. What do you mean? I asked. I mean, it is winter, she said softly. The roads are icy, especially that winding road up to your apartment, or the pass to Silver Pines. People lose control of their cars every day. One bad turn, one slippery patch, and all that money, all that success. It is just gone. Poof. And you know what? The world keeps spinning. The money goes to the next of kin. It always finds its way home. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was a direct threat. It was not even subtle. She was referencing the accident plan Lily had found in the note. Are you threatening me, Darla? I asked, my voice trembling. I am just worried about you, she said, her tone snapping back to a sickeningly fake concern. I just want you to be safe, so stop being difficult. Fix the bank account. Trevor is waiting. The line went dead. I saved the recording. I immediately uploaded it to the secure Dropbox I shared with Amanda and Eli. 2 minutes later, Amanda called me. I heard it, she said. Her voice was devoid of its usual legal polish. She sounded ready for war. That was a death threat. Accidents happen. Next of kin. She is escalating. She is blocked, I said. She cannot get the money through the bank, so she is getting desperate. She realizes the only way to get the payout now is if I die. I am contacting Detective Miller at the Economic Crimes Unit, Amanda said. We are not waiting for the civil suit. I am filing an emergency affidavit citing imminent physical danger. We are going to tie the financial fraud to the conspiracy to commit murder. This puts it in a whole new jurisdiction. Do it, I said. Madeline, Amanda paused. You need to stay away from them. Do not go to that house. Do not let them know where you are. I cannot stay away completely, I said. Lily is still there. Lily. My brave, terrified sister was currently living in a house with 2 people who were unraveling. Since Sunday, I had been running a covert operation to keep her safe. I knew Darla monitored Lily's phone. She checked her texts, her call logs, even her location history. So, on Monday evening, I had driven to a used bookstore 3 towns over. I bought a cheap, prepaid burner phone with cash. I activated it under the name Sarah Jenkins, a fictional cousin from Idaho. I had taped the phone inside the hollowed-out spine of a thick Sati prep book. I met Lily in the parking lot of her high school library on Tuesday afternoon, passing her the book through the window of my car like a drug deal. Keep it on silent, I had instructed her, gripping her hand. Hide it in your mattress. Only turn it on at night when they are asleep. Text me everything. Since then, Lily had been my eyes and ears inside Maple Ridge. Every night at 2 a.m, My phone would buzz with updates that painted a picture of a household in collapse. Tuesday, 2:15 a.m. Trevor is drinking a lot. I heard him throwing things in his room. He yelled at Mom that Gary is getting cold feet. Wednesday, 2:30 a.m. Mom is going through the safe again. She burned some papers in the fireplace. I think they were old tax returns. She keeps asking me where I was on Thanksgiving night when I went to the bathroom. I told her I was sick. She looks at me like she hates me. Thursday, 2 a.m. They are talking about a dinner. They want you to come over on Friday. Mom said, we need to get her in the room. If she is in the room, I can make her sign. Maddie, please be careful. Trevor bought a gun. He showed it to Uncle Jerry. He said it was for protection at the construction site, but he keeps it in the glove box of his truck. I read that last text again. Trevor bought a gun. The stakes had shifted from financial ruin to physical violence. Thursday afternoon, Amanda called me again. We got it, she said. The warrant? Better. The judge granted an ex parte hearing for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. That means we get to go before the judge without Darla or Trevor being notified first. Based on the recording and the forgery evidence, we are asking for a temporary restraining order, an immediate asset freeze, and an order of protection for Lily as a material witness. Tomorrow morning, I said. Friday. Yes, by noon on Friday, Darla will be locked out of every account she owns. The police will have warrants to search the house for the gun and the forged documents, and you will have legal custody of Lily pending the investigation. Friday night, I said, realizing the collision course we were on. Darla just texted me. She wants me to come over for a reconciliation dinner on Friday night. She said it is urgent. She said we need to heal the family. She does not want to heal the family, Amanda said grimly. She wants to get you in a room and force you to sign the papers before the weekend, or worse. She thinks I am coming to sign, I said. She thinks she has won. Let her think that, Amanda advised. Do not show up to the dinner. Let the police serve the papers instead. Let the deputies handle the dinner reservation. I have to go, I said. Madeline, no. I am not going alone, I said. But I need to be there. I need to distract them. If the police just show up, Trevor might do something stupid. He has a gun. Lily is in the house. If they see a squad car pulling up, they might take her hostage. They might hurt her to get to me. Amanda was silent. She knew I was right. In a standoff, Lily was the leverage. I will go to the dinner, I said, my voice steady. I will play the part. I will bring Eli as my financial advisor. We will keep them occupied at the table. We will keep them focused on the money. And when the police arrive to serve the warrant, Lily will be next to me, not trapped in a room with Trevor. It is too risky, Amanda argued. It is the only way to ensure Lily walks out of there, I said. I am not leaving my sister behind, not this time. Fine, Amanda sighed, sounding defeated but resigned. But Eli is going in wired, and I am having private security stationed down the block. If you give the signal, or if the audio cuts out, they breach the door before the police even park the car. Deal, I said. I hung up the phone and looked out the window of my office. The winter sun was setting early, casting long, sharp shadows across the city. Darla thought Friday night was going to be her victory lap. She thought she would serve roast beef and wine, and I would cower in my chair, signing away my life to buy her love. She thought she was the predator. She had no idea that she had invited the executioner to dinner. I picked up my phone and typed a response to Darla's invitation text. I will be there. Darla, 7 o'clock. I am bringing my advisor to finalize everything. Let us put this behind us. I watched the 3 little dots appear as she typed back almost instantly. Perfect. See you then. Drive safe. I stared at the words, drive safe. It was a threat masquerading as a benediction. I put the phone down. I touched the bruise on my cheek. It was turning a sickly shade of yellow-green now. I will drive safe, I whispered to the empty room. But you are going to crash and burn. I packed my bag. I had one more night to prepare. One more night of silence before the storm broke. I sent one final text to the burner phone hidden in Lily's mattress. Tomorrow night, be ready to run. The reply came back 3 minutes later. I am ready. I walked out of the Iron Shield building, into the biting cold. I felt a strange sense of calm. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. All that was left was the cold, hard math of revenge. They had taken $300,000. They had taken my childhood. They had taken my father. Tomorrow. I was taking the receipt. Friday morning did not feel like a day of reckoning. It felt dangerously ordinary. The sky was a flat, bruised purple over the skyline of Riverton, and the coffee in my mug tasted burnt. I sat in the high-back leather chair of Amanda Graves's office, watching her slide a heavy stack of documents across the mahogany desk toward me. "This is the kill switch," Amanda said, her voice devoid of its usual legal warmth. "Once you sign this, there is no going back. We are petitioning the court for an emergency asset freeze on grounds of criminal fraud. By noon, every account associated with Darla and Trevor Carter will be locked. By 5 o'clock, the sheriff's department will have the warrant to search the premises for the firearm and the forged documents." I looked at the papers. The header read, "Petition for temporary restraining order and emergency injunction." "And the trust?" I asked. "Done," Amanda confirmed. "We have transferred 80% of your liquid assets into the blind trust we set up yesterday. Even if they somehow manage to forge another power of attorney or hack your accounts, they will find an empty vault. You are bulletproof. Madeline." I picked up the pen. My hand did not shake. I thought about the $340,000 I had already lost. I thought about the red handprint on my face. I signed my name, my real signature, at the bottom of the page. The ink looked dark and permanent. "Okay," I said, capping the pen. "It is done." "Now comes the hard part," Amanda said. She stood up and walked to the door, opening it to reveal the rest of our team. Eli Barnes was there, looking sharp in a charcoal suit that made him look less like a forensic accountant and more like a Wall Street banker. Beside him stood a young woman I did not recognize. She had severe glasses and a tablet clutched to her chest. "This is Claire," Amanda introduced her. "She is my senior paralegal. I suggest you take her with you tonight. Introduce her as your assistant or a junior analyst from your company. Her job is to be a silent witness. She will be transcribing the conversation in real time on her tablet. If Darla tries to deny anything later, we will have a verbatim record from a third party." "2 guests?" I asked. "Darla might get suspicious." "It plays into the narrative," Eli corrected, adjusting his silk tie. "You told her you were bringing a financial advisor. High-level advisors bring staff. It makes you look serious. It makes you look like you are treating this as a business transaction, which is exactly what they want to believe. It signals that you are ready to sign, provided the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed." I nodded. It made sense. It added a layer of corporate intimidation that would make Darla eager to please. Eli walked over to the conference table and opened a thick black briefcase. Inside sat the dossier we had spent the last 48 hours assembling. It was our ammunition. "We have everything here," Eli said, tapping the file. "The forensic analysis of the 3 fraudulent mortgages, the side-by-side comparison of the digital signature scans showing the pixel defects, the transcripts of the audio recordings where they discuss the accident and the smoking gun, the metadata analysis of your father's revised will." I reached out and touched the edge of the file. The will was the piece that hurt the most. Eli had discovered that the document stripping me and Lily of our inheritance had been created on a computer registered to Trevor, 2 weeks after my father's stroke, using software that was not even installed on the family lawyer system. "You are sure about the will?" I asked quietly. 100%, Eli said softly. "Your father did not cut you out. Madeline, they deleted you." A lump formed in my throat. For 3 years, I had harbored a secret resentment toward my father, thinking he had chosen his new wife over his daughter, knowing that he was likely just a confused old man being manipulated by the people he trusted broke my heart in a way the financial theft never could. "He is going to be devastated," I whispered. "He is already a victim," Amanda said firmly. Tonight, you are going to save him, too, whether he wants it or not. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from the burner phone hidden in Lily's mattress. Sarah Jenkins. Mom is in a good mood. Too good. She is cooking roast beef. She told Trevor, Tonight we nail it down. I am going to make her sign in front of everyone. Once she is in that chair, she won't open her mouth. She never does. Trevor is nervous. He keeps checking the garage. I read the text out loud. She counts on your silence, Amanda noted, her eyes narrowing. She is banking on the fact that you have been conditioned for 20 years to avoid a scene. She thinks social pressure is her weapon. She is right, I said, standing up. I hate scenes. I hate conflict. That is why she thinks she has already won. Are you ready to change that? Eli asked. I looked at him. I am not going there to make a scene. Eli, I am going there to end the show. Amanda opened a drawer and pulled out a small, black device. It looked like a button on a blazer. Audio and video, she said, handing it to me. Clip this to your collar. It feeds directly to our server. We will have a team in a van 2 blocks away monitoring the feed. Detective Miller and the Economic Crimes Unit are on standby. The moment you give the signal, or if we hear any threat of violence, we breach the door. What is the signal? I asked. You say the phrase, I think I have seen enough, Amanda said. Use it when you put the dossier on the table. That is the cue for the police to move in. I took the camera and clipped it to my lapel. It was invisible against the dark fabric of my jacket. I also slid a secondary digital recorder into my pocket, just in case. One more thing, Eli said, his face serious. When we walk in there, they are going to try to separate us. Darla will want to get you alone in the kitchen or the study. Do not go. Stay in the room. Stay visible. I know, I said. And be prepared for the emotional fallout, Eli warned. When the handcuffs come out, they will not act like criminals. They will act like victims. They will scream that you are destroying the family. They will try to make you feel like the villain. Do not listen to it. I stopped listening to them a long time ago. I lied. I walked out of the office and into the elevator. The ride down to the parking garage felt like a descent into the underworld. I got into my car. Eli and Claire followed in his sedan. We formed a small, silent motorcade heading toward the suburbs. The drive to Maple Ridge usually took 40 minutes. Today, it felt like 5. My mind was a chaotic swirl of memories. I remembered my father teaching me to ride a bike on this very street. I remembered the smell of my mother's cookies. I remembered the first time Darla walked through the door, smiling that bright, predatory smile. I had to fight the urge to turn the car around. Every instinct in my body, honed by years of trauma, screamed at me to run. Just pay them, the voice whispered. Just give them the money and they will leave you alone. It is safer to be broke than to be hated. Then I touched the bruise on my cheek. I thought about the words, accidents happen. I thought about Lily, shivering in the bathroom, handing me that crumpled note. If I turned around now, Lily would be the next accident. I pulled the car up to the curb in front of the house. It was 7 o'clock. The windows were glowing with warm, yellow light. It looked like a painting of the American dream. A wreath hung on the door. Smoke curled from the chimney. But I knew what was inside. It was not a home. It was a slaughterhouse where they harvested empathy for cash. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I had applied my makeup with military precision. The bruise was covered, but I had left it just visible enough to be a reminder, not to them, but to me. I looked at my eyes. They were cold. They were the eyes of a stranger. I reached into the passenger seat and picked up the bottle of wine I had bought. It was a vintage Cabernet, expensive and heavy, a peace offering, a Trojan horse. Eli pulled up behind me. He stepped out, buttoning his jacket, looking every inch the skeptical financial auditor. Claire stood beside him, clutching her tablet like a shield. I got out of the car. The wind bit through my coat. I walked over to them. Ready? Eli asked quietly. Let us get this over with, I said. We walked up the driveway together. The gravel crunched under my heels, the same sound that had greeted me on Thanksgiving, but I was not walking in with a casserole dish and a heart full of hope this time. I reached the front door. I could hear music playing inside. Bing Crosby, "I'll be home for Christmas." The irony was nauseating. I reached for the doorbell, but my hand hovered for a second. I took a deep breath of the freezing air. "Do it for Lily," I told myself. I pressed the button. The chime rang out, cheerful and bright. I heard footsteps, rapid, eager footsteps. The door swung open. Darla stood there. She was wearing a red velvet dress, festive and tight. Her hair was perfect. She held a glass of wine in one hand and opened her arms wide with the other. "Madeline," she cried, her voice thick with performed joy. "You made it, and you brought friends." I looked at her. I looked past her into the warm, treacherous belly of the house. "Hello, Darla," I said, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I brought the wine." I stepped over the threshold, the camera on my collar blinking silently, recording every frame of the betrayal that was about to unfold. I was not a daughter coming home. I was the karma they had forgotten to account for. The dining room at Maple Ridge was a masterclass in gaslighting. Darla had set the stage with the precision of a director filming a redemption arc. The table was laden with roast beef that smelled of rosemary and garlic. The crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier. And the same relatives who had watched me get slapped a week ago were now smiling at me with warm, encouraging nods. It was as if the violence had been edited out of the family history, replaced by this glossy, high-definition lie of unity. Darla approached me the moment I sat down. She smelled of expensive perfume and white wine. She placed her hands on my shoulders, squeezing them with a possessiveness that made my skin crawl beneath my blazer. "I just want to say something before we eat," she announced, her voice trembling with a perfectly calibrated emotion. "I want to apologize to Madeline. Last week, emotions were running high. We are all under so much pressure, and I acted out of character. I love this girl like my own flesh and blood, and I am just so grateful she is big enough to forgive me. To family." "To family," the relatives chorused, raising their glasses. I raised mine, but I did not drink. I looked at Eli Barnes across the table. He was playing his part perfectly, nodding politely, looking every inch the boring financial advisor. Beside him, Claire sat with her tablet, tapping silently. Darla sat down, beaming. She waited exactly 12 minutes. I timed it on my watch, before making her move. It was right after the salad plates were cleared. "Now," she said, reaching under her chair and pulling out a fresh, crisp blue folder. "Since we are all here and in such good spirits, I think we should just get the boring business out of the way so we can enjoy dessert. Madeline, sweetie, I have the revised papers here. Trevor and I went over them. It is just a standard agreement. Simple stuff to protect the family assets." She slid the folder across the white tablecloth. It stopped inches from my hand. "Go ahead," she urged, offering me a gold fountain pen. "Just a few signatures, and we can put all this ugliness behind us." The room went silent, 20 pairs of eyes fixed on me. This was the social pressure trap. They expected me to crumble, to sign just to relieve the tension. I picked up the folder. I did not open it. I looked at Darla, then at Trevor, whose leg was bouncing nervously under the table. "Protect the family assets," I repeated slowly. "That is an interesting choice of words. Darla?" "It is just legalese," she laughed nervously. "You know how lawyers are." I placed my hand flat on the folder. "So, just to be clear before I sign, are these the same mortgage applications that you copy-pasted my signature onto for the last 4 years? Or is this a new batch for the accident plan you discussed in your emails?" The silence that followed was not the polite silence of a dinner party. It was the vacuum of a room where all the oxygen had suddenly been sucked out. Darla's smile froze. It did not fade. It just turned into a rictus mask of terror. "I beg your pardon?" "The accident plan," I said, my voice rising just enough to reach the back of the room. "The one where you and Trevor discussed how icy the mountain road to Silver Pines is. The one where you calculated that my accidental death on a slippery turn would pay out $2 million in life insurance, which is a better return than the loan you are trying to force me to sign. That is insane, Darla whispered, looking around the table for support. She is having an episode. Harold, do something. She is talking nonsense. Who gave you permission to go through my emails? Trevor shouted. The outburst was sudden and stupid. He slammed his hand on the table, his face turning a blotchy crimson. The relatives gasped. Trevor had just confirmed the emails existed. Trevor, Darla hissed, kicking him under the table. No, I said, standing up. Do not hush him, Darla. Let him speak. He is right. I did not go through his emails. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the crumpled, smoothed-over piece of paper that Lily had given me. I placed it in the center of the table, right next to the roast beef. Lily found this, I said, in the trash can in your study. Darla, it is a printout of your conversation and your handwriting at the bottom. I picked it up and read the line out loud, my voice steady and cold. If she fights the power of attorney, we move to Plan B. The mountain road is very slippery. Accidents happen. Problem solved. I looked at my Aunt Linda. Does that sound like family to you? Linda? Planning a car crash for your niece? Linda looked at Darla, her mouth hanging open. Darla? Is this true? Of course not, Darla shrieked, standing up. It is a forgery. Madeline typed that up to frame us. She is jealous. She has always been jealous of Trevor. I did not type it, a small voice said. Everyone turned. Lily was standing up at the end of the table. She was shaking so hard the water in her glass was rippling, but her chin was high. I found it, Lily said, her voice gaining strength. I heard you, Mom. I heard you and Trevor on the phone Tuesday night. You said if Maddie did not sign tonight, you would make sure she drove home on the scenic route. You laughed about it. Lily, shut your mouth, Darla snarled, her eyes flashing with a demonic fury. Go to your room right now. No, Lily said. She walked around the table and stood next to me. I am not going to my room, and I am not lying for you anymore. Darla looked at Lily, then at me, and I saw the realization hit her. She had lost control of the narrative. She lunged toward the table, reaching for the folder I had refused to sign, intending to tear it up, to destroy the evidence. Now, I said loudly. The signal. The front door burst open with a crash that shook the walls. Amanda Graves walked in, followed by 2 uniformed officers and a man in a suit who flashed a gold badge. Detective Miller from the Economic Crimes Unit. Sit down. Mrs. Carter, Detective Miller barked. Darla froze, her hand hovering over the roast beef. Who are you? You cannot barge in here. This is a private dinner. It is a crime scene, Amanda said, stepping forward. She motioned to Eli, who opened his briefcase and began laying documents out on the dining table, covering the festive tablecloth with the black and white reality of their crimes. We have the 3 fraudulent mortgage applications totaling $215,000, Amanda announced, addressing the stunned relatives. We have the forensic analysis proving the signatures were digital forgeries. We have the IP logs tracing the submission to the coffee shop where Trevor checks in every morning. And, Eli added, placing a final document on top, we have the original will of Harold Carter and the metadata proving that Trevor Carter altered the digital file 2 weeks after Harold's stroke to remove Madeline and Lily from the inheritance. The room erupted. My father let out a strangled sob. You changed the will? Harold whispered, looking at his wife. Darla, you told me the lawyer suggested the changes. I did it for us, Darla screamed, abandoning the denial and pivoting to justification. I did it for this family. We were drowning. Harold, your medical bills, the house repairs. We needed money. And she had so much of it. She was sitting there in her ivory tower, hoarding millions, while we scraped by. I did what a mother has to do. You stole from your husband, Amanda said coldly, and then you planned to murder his daughter to cover your tracks. I never said murder, Darla yelled, pointing a shaking finger at me. It was just talk. We were venting. We never would have touched her. We have the audio recording from Tuesday, I said, tapping the device on my collar. The one where you told me accidents happen all the time, and that the money always finds its way home. The police have it too. Darla went pale. She looked at Trevor. Do something! Tell them! Trevor looked at the police officers, then at his mother, and his survival instinct kicked in. It was her idea, Trevor shouted, backing away toward the kitchen. I just wanted the loan for the business. She was the one who talked about the insurance. She said Madeline was worth more dead. I told her it was crazy, but she made me print the emails. You coward! Darla lunged at her son, scratching at his face. Restrain them, Detective Miller ordered. The two officers moved in. One grabbed Trevor, spinning him around and slamming him against the refrigerator. The other grabbed Darla. Get your hands off me! Darla shrieked as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. I am a respected member of this community. You are making a mistake. Madeline, tell them this is a misunderstanding. I stood there, watching the woman who had tormented me for 16 years being expertly restrained by the law. I felt nothing, no pity, no joy, just a profound sense of completion. It is no mistake, Darla, I said. Wait, Aunt Linda stood up, her face red. You cannot just arrest them. This is a family matter. Madeline, surely we can work this out. They are your family. You cannot send them to prison. Amanda Graves turned on her heel. She pulled a sheet of paper from her file. Linda Peterson, Amanda read, received a Louis Vuitton handbag valued at $3,000 last Christmas, paid for with a credit card opened fraudulently in Madeline Carter's name. Unless you want to be named as an accessory to receiving stolen property, I suggest you sit down and be quiet. Linda collapsed back into her chair as if her strings had been cut. The other relatives stared at their plates, terrified that their names were next on the list. The police began to march Darla and Trevor toward the front door. Trevor was sobbing now, begging the officers to check his pockets for the gun he claimed he never intended to use. Darla was still fighting, twisting in the officer's grip. As she passed me, she stopped. She looked me dead in the eye, her face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. You are a monster, she spat, spittle flying from her lips. You are ungrateful trash. I gave you a home. I gave you a family, and you destroyed it. You are breaking this family apart. I looked at her. I looked at the handcuffs. I looked at the terrified relatives. A family does not plan to kill each other for insurance money. Darla, I said calmly, I didn't break this family. I just turned on the lights. The officer shoved her forward. Let's go. I watched them walk out the door, the red and blue lights of the squad cars flashing through the front window, illuminating the living room in a chaotic strobe effect. The silence that followed was heavy. My father was sitting in his chair at the head of the table. He looked small. He looked old. He was weeping silently, his hands covering his face. I walked over to him. Dad, I said softly. He looked up. His eyes were red and watery. I knew, he whispered. I knew they were borrowing money. I didn't know about the will. I didn't know about the accident plan, but I knew they were taking from you, and I let them. I was just so afraid. Maddie, I was afraid of being alone. It was the truth. Finally. But it was a truth that came 10 years and $300,000 too late. I know, Dad, I said. But fear is not an excuse. I turned to Lily. She was standing by the door, holding the small bag I had told her to pack earlier that day. Come on, Lily, I said. Where are you going? Harold asked, his voice cracking. Maddie, please, do not leave me here, not alone. I looked at the house. I looked at the dining table with the half-eaten roast beef and the files of evidence. I looked at my father, a man who had chosen his comfort over his children's safety until the very end. You are not alone. Dad, I said, you have the house until the bank forecloses on it, but Lily is coming with me. You cannot take her, he said weakly. Try and stop me, I said. I put my arm around Lily's shoulders. We walked to the front door. I did not look back at the relatives. I did not look back at the chandelier or the family photos on the wall. Photos that were all lies anyway. We stepped out into the night. The air was freezing, but it felt clean. It felt like oxygen. Amanda and Eli were waiting by the cars. Amanda nodded to me. "It is done," she said. "The protective order is signed. Lily stays with you." "Thank you," I said. I opened the passenger door of my car for Lily. She slid in, clutching her bag. I got into the driver's seat. I started the engine. I looked at the house one last time through the windshield. I saw my father's silhouette in the window, watching us leave. I felt a pang of sadness, but it was a distant thing, like a memory of a pain I used to feel. I put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb. "Are we going home?" Lily asked, her voice small in the darkness of the car. I looked at her. I looked at the road stretching out ahead of us, leading back to the city, back to my quiet, safe apartment, back to a life that finally belonged to me. "Yes," I said, "we are going home." There was no need for a fast forward. There was no need to tell you that Darla got 15 years or that Trevor turned state's evidence against her. That is public record. The story ends here, not with a bang, but with the sound of tires on pavement, driving away from the wreckage. They wanted to take everything from me. They wanted my money, my name, and eventually, my life. They thought I was weak because I was silent. They forgot that silence is also the sound of a fuse burning down. On that Thanksgiving night, when my stepmother slapped me, I thought I was defeated. But then Lily handed me a note. They thought it was just a crumpled piece of paper. It turned out to be their own prison sentence. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It was the hardest thing I have ever had to live through, but sharing it feels like the final step in closing the door on that part of my life. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Are you listening on your commute, at the gym, or maybe while cooking your own dinner? Let me know in the comments below so we can connect. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about how justice is served, please subscribe to the Lila Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and smash that hype button so we can share this story with more people who might need the courage to stand up for themselves. Stay safe, and never let anyone mistake your silence for weakness.